Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I get to ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week is a fire captain hailing from Greensboro, North Carolina. He has nearly 20 years working in the fire service. He's joining me today to talk about his journey and his struggle with his own mental health and what he's done to overcome it. This week, my guest, Justin Hite. Welcome, Justin. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm definitely a fish out of water after seeing all your other guests, but I appreciate it.
We love having anyone on that has a story to tell, and I think that you have a pretty interesting one to tell. And so you don't have to read a textbook to be interesting around here. But we will start with our Wheel of Stupid Questions, which is just a reminder that asking questions is good, even if it's stupid. If you point at the right people, you can get some pretty smart answers. What do you think about that? Okay, so I do have a real wheel, but for this week, right now there's a hot button online that we're going to skip the wheel and we're going to go straight into the question I want to talk about because I don't know if you've seen it, but online right now there's a huge discussion about whether 100 men could beat one gorilla in a fight.
Oh, dude, we talked about this yesterday at work, funny enough, and I think there's no way the gorilla pulls it out.
Whoa. I'm surprised. So you think 100 guys beats a gorilla?
There's got to be some parameters. Like the men have to be committed to killing the gorilla.
Okay.
Right? Like, and if you take like instinct out of it, yeah, I think so. I mean, you're going to lose 10 or 20, 10
Do you
or
think
20
that's
guys.
the percentage? I'm thinking you're losing 95%.
Really? Maybe.
I was just in San Diego a month ago or so, and we saw the gorillas and stuff. There's no way. I mean, like one SWAT, it doesn't even know you're there. I think the sheer numbers is where it comes in, right? At a certain point, 100 people is a lot of people.
Right.
But I don't know if I've heard some theories about everyone converges at once and you overwhelm the gorilla. I think that's fine, but also you could go one at a time. We're just going to lose a lot of soldiers, but eventually the gorilla is going to tire out. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think one at a time. I think he's killing all 100. Honestly, I think it's got to be just a overwhelming use of force. But
I'm just thinking one big gorilla arm swing it might just clear out 8, 9, 10 guys at a time. But
yeah. We went down this rabbit hole for a couple hours yesterday.
That's the firehouse for you, yeah.
And we were still divided, but I always fall back. It's like some statistic that like 80% of men think they could land a commercial jet in an emergency. We like violently American overestimate ourselves. So
I think I could land a commercial jet in an emergency for the record.
Definitely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but so much so that I've wanted to do it. I've talked to my wife about it before. Like, can I just go to a flight simulator and see if I can figure it out? I think that there's a chance.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. This is great, though. This is honestly the root of the whole Wheel of Stupid Questions was this idea that you sit around in the firehouse all day and just have idiotic conversations because there's nothing to do but pass the time. Yeah. The hardest part is to find questions that are appropriate to say around the general public. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, they get you flagged on some sort of
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty, right? So you're a fire captain down in North Carolina, and you've been there for 20 years or so, just about 20 years. How did you get into the fire service?
Yeah, man. So I went to high school. I had a very normal North Carolina upbringing, but I went to graduate high school and I was going to go do the 4-year college thing. And I went to High Point University. And at the time, yeah, I was in a band with a couple of guys, and I was younger than them. And one of the guys in the band uh, was a paramedic in Iredell County, so that's like Statesville, about an hour west of me. And he had like a nice house, nice truck, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, Uh, and High Point University wasn't really like the 4 year college thing wasn't really my thing, so um, talked around to some people, and I ended up volunteering at a little combination department. And at that, following my first year of college, I went to our local community college and started the paramedic program. Um, I guess I was 19. And then did that while I was in the program. I got hired by Forsyth County EMS, so that's like the city of Winston-Salem and surrounding. And at the time, they were working 24-hour shifts, and uh, I was in my intermediate at the time, so like cardiology, pharmacology, all that. Doing that, and then I'd go work my 24 on, 48 off, and I did that for my total career there was about 4 months, and I was like, "There's no way I'm retiring from this."
Mm-hmm.
I got my firefighter 1 and 2 at night when I was in at High Point University, and so I was a resident at Colfax Fire Department, at our combination department. So I lived there, um, and I had a buddy of mine, still a good friend of mine. He's like, "Man, you ought to apply, to Greensboro." And times have changed. Like that was 2008. So back then we were getting close to 1,000 applications, I think, for a recruit class, 25 people. And here I am. I feel like the fire service gravitates towards college educated, military, or prior fire experience. And I had a little fire experience, but, it wasn't for a municipality or anything. Um, but he was like, "Nah, just apply." So I did. And I don't know what they were thinking. I think I caught them on a bad day, but I got hired and started recruit school in February of '09. And, I'm in there with like just guys with like master's degrees, and we had a few like special forces dudes, and I'm in there thinking like every day like I'm gonna get fired, like there's no way I can do all this stuff, and they're just like, "Man, calm down, like it's part of the game, whatever," because it's very paramilitary.
Mm-hmm.
um you know uh and so yeah, that started my career at the city of Greensboro. So I've
Did you
been
have
there
anyone in
just
your family that was anything like that? Any connection?
No. So I'm the youngest of four. By that time, all my siblings were doing their own thing. I've got a brainiac of a brother that works in the national defense sector for the federal government up in Virginia, D.C. area. My sister is works in insurance and super high up doing that. And my brother took over my dad's company, and then there was me, and I was just kind of I don't know what I'm going to do, but yeah, really, all kind of the emergency services kind of stem from playing bass in this metalcore band with a dude that was a paramedic, and uh, yeah, and so I was like, "Oh, this seems cool, maybe I'll
Do
try
you still
that." And
play?
yeah, so I play at church every once
Okay.
in a while, and then I just recorded some music. I have some buddies that kind of have a studio, this like a startup studio, and I recorded with them, and that song will never see the light of day. It was just kind of a passion project, I
Yeah.
guess. And but
Cool,
yeah,
man.
man, I still pick around and do that. Yeah.
So get into it. You finished the recruit academy. Do you remember your first fire? That's kind of the question I always try to get out of people.
Yeah. So um, in recruit school, like everybody's waiting for. I think it's the last. I don't know how they do it now, but so like the last week they tell you your assignment, right? And we're probably like any municipality. We have 7 or 8 stations that are doing it, and then we have our retirement houses that and being younger, I got sent to one of the retirement homes. So, which I'm grateful for now. I had my first captain was awesome. He was towards the end of his career, but had done a lot. And I had a couple little fires there, but fortunately, I made a decent name for myself and got moved to a station it runs mutual aid with the combination department I came from. So the chief there was like, "Hey, you work at Colfax, like we run out there, like come here, give me like 6 months, and I'll get you where you want to go, which was downtown Engine 4. But while I was at uh, it's Engine 20, so it's on the western side of Greensboro, um, we had one of the tanks at our, we call it the tank farm. It's the, the big, you know, above ground, they store diesel, gasoline, mixtures of all sorts of flammable liquids there. We have the largest one east of the Mississippi in Greensboro, and one of those got struck by lightning. We had that fire. So we were the first in there. I was driving the foam engine 20, which like was an old, I think mid 80s, maybe early 80s, like foam engine. Uh, and my captain was off at the time, and it was me and a good buddy of mine that rode with me over there, and they took our regular engine, the other two guys, and we pulled up in this tank. I think it was a 180-foot diameter tank, was just rolling about midnight. So that was my first like big fire, not structure fire. But then after that, I think I did 6 months at 20, and my chief, sure enough, true to his word, got me sit down to Engine 4, and that's you get 3 or 4 a month, but they're room and contents and 800 square foot houses usually, so that was awesome. Yeah.
Sweet. So then you get moved to Engine 4. How long are you there before you promote?
Yeah. Well, so the problem was when I got to 20, I said, I need to get out of here. Like, I want to go to riding stations. And at the time, our hazmat team was split between two stations, Station 11 and Station 48, both of which are busy. And I was like, you know, I, I think maybe I'll put in to go to a hazmat tech school and take chemistry and all that, because that'll guarantee me I'm out of here. So while I was at 20, before our big tank farm fire, I went to tech school. They sent me to tech school into chemistry and all that. And then right after that, they said, hey, you're going to Engine 4. And I was like, perfect. Leave me here. I'm good. That didn't work out. So I was at 4 for about 8 months. And then our deputy chief at the time, that then became our fire chief, called me. He's like, hey, you're going to ladder 11. And I was like, all right, that's not too bad. It's one of the ladders that runs downtown. It's a busier truck company. I was like, okay, if I got to leave here, I can go there. So I got there, and a month in, I'd heard whispers of them adding another hazmat company. So right, at that time it was 3 of us, so there was 12. But I'd heard whispers of them adding 4 more, and a chief that I had a really good relationship with, who came from a meeting at the station, and I was sitting out there, and he walked by, and he was over our 4th battalion, so that's airport, slower stations and stuff. He walked by and he said, "You're mine," and kept walking, and I was like, well, what's going on? And so we moved from 11 and 48 to then 11 and 21. And at the time, 21, where I got sent, because I was the last guy in, I was the first guy out off this company to go make this new. So I got moved to ladder 21. I think at the time we were running like 400 calls a year. Like, we didn't run a call for like 6 shifts, and we got one in the middle of the night. I woke up and I just started running in my little cubicle, and I ran smack into the wall and like bloody nose, getting to the truck, and yeah, it was rough. But yeah, so we still have Station 21 and Station 11 for our hazmat, and I made it back to ladder 11, which is a truck. I spent so we used to rotate between 21 and 11 because no one would want to come to hazmat if you're going to be out, and put out in pasture. So we used to rotate it was a year and 2 years. And so I did a lot of time in ladder 21, ladder 11. And now as a captain, when I came back to hazmat, I kind of bounced around and got back to ladder 11, which is where I want to be.
Great. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of spurred this along to have you on today was I think you had listened to one of the episodes that we had someone on talking mental health, and you said you had a story kind of in that vein, and you've had some experiences with dealing with your own mental health and kind of overcoming some stuff. So kind of walk me through that, right? You like if we come from you kind of finding this career path that you didn't know was going to be something you wanted to do. Now you get into it. What's the turning point that kind of makes the mental health go sour?
Yeah, and I think the catalyst for it was really so kind of going back and not to bore everybody, but when I was on hazmat, there was a guy, a senior firefighter to me, that he was on another shift, but I'm not, we try to, like, we can trade shifts. So we try to keep it within the station so no one has to float out. And so I'd work with him a bunch, and we went on deployments together with hazmat stuff, and he and I really hit it off. And then um, he got promoted and and ended up wanting to slow down, get off the hazmat team. So he went to Station 20, which is where I was at originally with our big tank farm fire. And then when I got promoted to captain, I went out to 20, and he was there on my shift. So he was the driver of the ladder company. I was the captain on the engine company, and he and I were pretty tight, and we both struggled with a lot of the same things, and just life, man, that everybody deals with. Um, but then I was able, I transferred back to the hazmat, and of course he stayed there, and he ended up taking his life. Um, and I think, like, at the time, I was like, man, that really sucks. Like, he's got a daughter and a wife, and uh, like, could I have done something? Probably not. I don't know. Like, but at the time, I didn't think it was a big deal to me. Like, I mean, it was obviously a huge deal, but I didn't feel like it was a catalyst for, um, that it turned into be, to kind of like, well, man, like, this dude that I really love and care about and respect did that, like, and then that kind of became a recurring thing. And then from that, like, I had always, like I said, I got hired my first time. Like, I was in class with people that applied 6 and 7 times. I get scooped up my first time. First time I take the company officer test, as soon as I'm eligible, I finished, I think, fourth on the list out of 47. Um, I'd done everything I wanted to do. Uh, Eligible for the battalion chiefs process. I'm like, well, I guess I'll take it, and ended up making our promotional list. So I kind of done all the things, and at the same time, like, my wife is finishing school. She's super successful in her career, and built our dream house. We've got 2 healthy kids. Um, I kind of, like, done everything that I thought, like, would make me happy. That would kind of be fulfilled. I was super involved in church. Like, I'm leading a community group at the church and doing all these things. And I've always struggled with mental health. It was always one of those things, like, and I remember the first time I ever brought it up, I was in the fire academy. I was like talking to my primary care, like, every day is stressful. It's designed to be. But I'm a 20-year-old kid with no life experience. So, it started with that, like, taking medication, try something for a few years, and I don't know if it's working. Let me try something else, and just kind of managing it. I never took anything where I was like, oh, this is really helping me out mentally. So I guess I don't know, a couple years ago, and I don't know what the culture's like where you are, but where I'm at, it's pretty much like, if you're not on duty, and even my friends that aren't in the fire service, it's like, well, come over and have a beer. And so yeah, so
Yeah.
started drinking a lot, and I'm thankful that it never became like a dependency thing. And honestly, like, I think I would be an alcoholic if it wasn't for work. Like, I have to be sober every third day. So I think that was kind of built in, probably saved me, honestly. But just started self medicating, and from that time that my buddy Larry took his life, and um, I'd always been a yes man. Like, I don't like confrontation, and that's kind of where I'm weird in the fire service. Is like, I'm around a bunch of type A guys, and I'm the kind of guy that's like, I just don't like, I'm not going to fight about this. I'm not going to stand up. My way is the right way. None of that. And I brought that home, and so, like, I wasn't really being clear with my wife about, like, yeah, like, I really don't want to go to walk around Target for 4 hours, or whatever it is, and all that kind of caught up with me, man. And so, yeah, I was drinking heavily. I get off from work, and I'm like, nah, I mean, we were up since like 1 a.m. on a fire, so it's really like 3 p.m. for me, even though it's 8:30. I can have a beer now, drinking more and more, and uh, I ended up talking to a good friend of mine who is super involved in our union and uh, the peer support team and all that. And told him, I was like, man, I'm in a rough spot. And he's like, let's go have lunch. So we did. And he's like, dude, you need to talk to somebody, um, really pointed me in the right direction. But what I've learned since then is like, it's like firemen, man. There's some good counselors. There's some that are, when people ask you about them, you just say like, "Oh, that's a nice guy," but you know what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
That is. Uh, so I tried to go through our employee engagement committee or program. I mean, and I got online and found this guy, and we did our little meet and greet, and it was by far the most uncomfortable conversation I've ever had. And I was like, "Nah, that's not going to work." So ended up meeting with a different therapist and another psychiatrist all virtually, and that's when things actually went kind of south, man. Like the therapist I was meeting with, and I think she had the best intentions, but it wasn't so much trying to work through my stuff. It was it's the things around you. It's your wife, it's your job, it's this, it's that. You need to make some changes, and you need to find your happiness and all that. And that's just not like that's. It wasn't the way I was raised. It's not my worldview. Like,
Yeah.
and so um, I was meeting with a psychiatrist. We were changing medications and stuff, and then I wasn't sleeping, and I was like, I got to a point where I said, all right, I've done all the things, like, short of going to the Center of Excellence, which my buddy, and he didn't tell me I could say his name, but I will. His name's Vinny. If you're big in the union in the Southeast, you probably know Vinny. He works part time for the IAFF and stuff. He's just a solid dude. Um, but he was really pushing me to go to the Center of Excellence, and I was like, I fought him on it. Um, but yeah, short of doing that, like I've done everything else I can do. And then uh, that's when I had my lesson in like the human mind is a very powerful thing. And I started to alienate my wife and kids, convince myself like, my wife is super attractive, makes great money. She'll be fine if I'm gone. Uh, the boys, I've got two boys. They're 5 and 9 now. I was like, they'll meet somebody, whoever Marissa ends up with will be a better dad to them than I will be. Um, and I convinced myself of all these things. And so, yeah, I started kind of coming up with a plan. And it got so much because I was like, all right, my parents live 500 yards from me. They built a house up the road from me and they're retired. So I was like, it's got to be a day, preferably a weekend. So they have the weekend to deal with the fallout. I was like, it's got to be the day when my parents aren't home. Somebody could pick my kids up from school, and then I came up with a plan and had it figured out. I was like, I don't want it to be messy, so my wife can sell my truck. Um,
Wow.
I knew what kind of body bags they used in the county I live in, so I was like, all right, I can zip myself up in the body bag, have a note on the window for the firemen that show up, tell them what happened. I wrote 14 letters and had them addressed to different folks from friends of mine, obviously my wife, my parents, all the way up to our fire chief, to tell him like, hey man, you've done everything you can. This is not your fault. Like, I made this decision, and so yeah,
How
it
long
came
of
to
a
that.
process was that you were doing all this preparation?
Yeah, so it was probably when I started seeing my original counselor and that first psychiatrist to the time when I was like, this is not working. Like, I'm done. Was probably 3 months, and then I started, over the span of like that last month, probably,
Wow.
yeah, figuring out stuff and figuring out like, all right, who can pick the kids up because I didn't want them to find me. I didn't want my parents to find me, uh, but I also didn't want like, the responders that show up inevitably. Um, and so I toyed around with actually figuring out a way to delay a call to 911 because I knew that they would rapid SOS my cell phone and find me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, delay that so then my family wasn't involved at all. Like they
Wow.
would,
So obviously
yeah,
you're here with us now. So
yeah,
something
yeah,
must have happened that was good.
yeah.
What is that
Um,
process?
yeah. So uh, the day I had planned, um, so my dad, he's a lot like me. He's retired, but like he has to be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and he's also got some like early Alzheimer's stuff. My parents are in their mid to late 70s. So I asked him the day before, I was like, hey, do you think tomorrow I've got some stuff to do around the house, but I was like, can you run to Lowe's for me? It's about a 20-minute drive and pick up a replacement for an outside faucet that had gotten knocked off. Uh, and he said, yeah, I'll do that. So I was like, all right. I was like, yeah, I want to get it done by like noon if you can, because that would give me enough time. So my mom, she had an appointment to get her hair done. So I knew she was going to be gone. And yeah, my dad, I could see when he leaves the house, I didn't want to raise any suspicions or anything. So I was just waiting and waiting and waiting, and he never left the house. And so at that time, I was like, all right, I guess I have to wait. And I ended up messaging, talking back to the same buddy that told me to get help. And he, we always joke about dark humor and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, the internet is flush with great memes about, you know,
Yeah.
all that. So we'd send them back and forth. And I'd send him something, and he's like, hey, man, are you good? And I was like, yep, going great. And he's like, nah, because he knows I'm honest with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I ended up having a long talk. And, he kind of brought it that like, bro, your family's not better off without you. You're not. And I don't want to say I believed him, but I was like, okay, something's got to change. So my wife works in healthcare, and I told her, I was like, if you can get me with somebody else, like I'll try again. And thankfully, I found this place in Winston, and I went and met. Uh, they got me in pretty quick, which I think was my wife pulling strings, then saying like, "No, this guy is not in a good place," because she would get home from work, and I would just go pass out in the bed. I wouldn't eat dinner, or like I was
Mm-hmm.
just waiting for an opportunity.
Wow.
And I had like, yeah, it got bad, dude. It was real bad. Anyway, I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the good stuff, like you said. So I ended up going to this place, and I met with this nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner, and he ran down the list, and he's like, "All right, here's what we're gonna do," and he said, "You're gonna come in every day you're off work and do TMS, so transcranial magnetic stimulation, and we're going to get you a referral to start ketamine if that's something you're interested in." And I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. Like, if there's more out there for me to try, sure. Um, so I started TMS, and every day I was off work, I would drive the 20 minutes to Winston-Salem to, uh, they put a big magnet on your head and do a brain scan to see what it's activating. And the idea is that the electrical pulse kind of rewires your neurons in your brain and all that. And so I did that for 36 sessions. And while I was doing that, I met with the physician who owns the practice and talked about ketamine. And I had been very against it for a while. Like before I even went through all this, I listened to a bunch of different podcasts. Listen to special forces guys go do ayahuasca and ibogaine and all these different
Mm-hmm.
treatments. Ketamine's mentioned for mental health stuff, and I was just like, I feel like that's just an excuse to do psychedelics. Uh, but at that point, she was like, "You're a prime candidate." We talked about my stuff, and a lot of my mental health stuff is not job related. I think it's exacerbated by the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have like recurring nightmares about bad calls. Like, sure, I think about them occasionally, but it's not like the typical PTSD stuff.
Hmm.
Mine is much more just you know, major depression major depression and generalized anxiety. So
Hmm.
she's like, you're a prime candidate. So while I was doing TMS, I started ketamine therapy as well. And while this is all going on, another friend of mine, which is kind of what spurred me on to you know, kind of get this out there, is a guy, he's a captain on hazmat that is just, I really respect, just a really solid dude. And he and I were talking about stuff, and he's like, man, I've got this therapist. She's awesome. I'm like, you are the last person I thought would ever go to therapy, you know? And
Hmm.
so I was like, okay. So I ended up meeting with her, and she's awesome. She does ride-alongs with fire departments and PD, and like she's and very open to alternative medicine. She's been on ibogaine retreats and stuff like that, and sees the value in it. So her only stipulation was like, you know, Justin, I think ketamine's a great option for you, but you have to see me within 48 hours of your ketamine treatment. Like that's her rule. That was, and which also worked out. That was the same rule for the place I was going. They said, you know, you've got to be engaged with a therapist. And so started ketamine, and I don't see why anybody would do that for fun. But it really did open me up to a lot of things. And so I would do my ketamine appointment and then meet with my therapist, and we did a lot of EMDR, eye
Hmm.
movement, yeah, stuff. And man, there was stuff in my past, like from a little kid, that I didn't even realize I was holding on to. Um, and so I started to see progress, and you know, I cut back on the drinking quite a bit, and started to kind of get my feet back under me. I was like, all right, maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and then that brings us up to really just a few months ago. Um, I met again with my psychiatrist, so I finished my 36 sessions of TMS. I've been in the ketamine therapy. We had adjusted my medication. So he's like, "How are you?" And I was like, "Not good, but not bad. Like I'm just kind of here," which is great from where I was.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I wanted to talk to you about something." He said, "You mentioned when you were like 11 that you got diagnosed with ADHD," and I was like,
Mhm.
"Everyone did. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing, you know." And I was like, "Nah, I think I'm good with that." He's like, "Well, how about this? Why don't we just do this test just to see?" Okay. So you know, they hooked my head up to this movement sensor, and you know, it's whatever, recognizing shapes or something. So I did the test, and that day they get your results, and I met with him, and he's like, "This is the worst I've ever seen." He's like, "Your accuracy is excellent, but it takes you like 4 times as long than a normal person
Yeah.
to answer." And I'm like, "Well, yeah," because I'm sitting there and I'm like spacing out. I was like, "Was that a blue circle?" Yeah, it was a blue circle. Click the
Hmm.
button, you know.
I've
Uh,
taken that test.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I like I fell asleep in the middle of it. Um, And he's like, "So let's start treating your ADHD." And that's when like the switch kind of flipped, and things have been much improved. And I really just shied away from that because I felt like everybody, especially you know late '80s, early '90s, had ADD. Like that was the thing, you know. I was like,
Yeah. I had the
and is
same
that?
thing. I had the same
Yeah,
thing, and I was really resistant. I took medication all my whole childhood, and then when I kind of graduated, I was like, I'm not taking medication anymore. What the hell
yeah,
am I doing? I'm not taking medication. And
yeah,
then eventually, I was like, I got married, and my wife was like, "You got to get on something because I'm gonna stab you in the neck with a fork." And
yeah,
uh, and yeah, it's a game changer. Now I take ADD stuff, and I'm absolutely a candidate because without it, I'm
that,
non-functional and my mental
yeah,
health struggles and
yeah,
I haven't went down the rabbit hole that you have in terms of like the ketamine and the but I have done EMDR and I see a therapist just about every week and
yeah,
like I love him. He's like my guy and I'm
yeah,
trying to get him to be on the podcast. He's resistant, but no, I can't overemphasize how. like it's great that people like you come and share their story and talk about how things are hard and that there is a path out. And I think of it more as going to the gym, right? And at this point in my life, it's like, you go to the gym to increase your physical well-being, but like so often people are willing to just like gut it when it comes to their mental health.
Right.
But like, I go to the therapy when I don't have a problem and I still find
Yeah.
something to talk about. I've never went to a session where I don't have something to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So talk me through some of the nitty gritty of those treatments. Like, what was your experience doing the what is it, transdermal?
Yeah. Yeah, TMS. Yeah.
So, are you feeling effects immediately when that's happening, or is it kind of like it's going to eventually work, or how does that
Yeah.
go?
So yeah, it's kind of a cumulative effect. The way it was pitched to me, like it's not like you're going to go to your first session and then you feel great. Um, but essentially, the science behind it is you're resetting these neurons in this specific part of your brain where depression, anxiety, PTSD live. You're resetting them and giving them an opportunity to find a new normal. So it, I went. There's different options depending on what you can tolerate. So my sessions were like I think 3 minutes.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, so my initial consultation, a physician came in and she had the magnet, over my head and basically looking for a twitch in my right thumb. That told her she was in the right spot. So they marked that and then measure. And so every day I'd go in, the technician who became a good friend of mine because we spent a lot of time together,
Yeah.
uh, would measure and then same thing right back there and we work up the intensity as I could tolerate it. And it feels kind of like getting popped with a rubber band just over and over and over
Hmm.
again. And that's just getting enough force to penetrate your skull and get down to
Interesting.
your brain. After
So
a
in
treatment,
retrospect, do you think that that was helpful, or is it kind of a like are any of the individual facets of the things you did, be it that or the ketamine therapy or the talk therapy or EMDR, do you attribute your success and kind of this
right?
revival to any facet more than another?
And that's one of those things. It's kind of hard to quantify. Um, I talked to people that had really great response to TMS, and I don't feel like I was in that camp. But I did notice maybe some minor improvements. But it's also difficult to tell because at the same time I was doing TMS and doing ketamine, I'm in therapy sometimes 3 times a week. And so I just kind of decided to throw everything at it. I would say the biggest thing for me was finding a therapist who was willing to shoot me straight, like not oh yeah, you're fine, it's the world around you, it's your situation, it's this. She's like, nah, you're pretty messed up, like we need to work on you. It's not your wife's fault, it's not having your stress from kids and all that. It's like it's your own brain chemistry that's your worst enemy, and I needed that. I needed somebody to kind of shoot me straight. um, but then at the same time do it kind of with compassion and be like, all right, so you're messed up, you made some bad decisions, like doesn't define you. And so that kind of therapy coupled with the ketamine was really, I think, probably kind of pushed me over the edge. And then once I started treatment for my ADHD, it really, that was kind of the silver bullet, so to speak, because it was a weird cycle of I would come home from work and, because of our schedule, like I ended up doing a lot around the house and, uh, I would get just oversaturated with tasks, so I wouldn't do anything because I was like, there's so much that needs to be done,
Yeah.
and then I would feel bad about myself because I'm like, my wife's at work, she's making way more money than me, and then she comes home and I haven't done anything and so it's just kind of this cycle where now it's like I can come home and all right, I'm going to knock these things out and be productive, to the household, and then I don't feel bad about myself, and then it doesn't spiral out of control there. So yeah, I think the ketamine was a big thing, man. like I said, I don't see why anybody does it for fun. It was not, the actual experience is not enjoyable for me, but it does kind of open up your brain. And I don't know, I mean, I got a bachelor's degree in fire science administration. I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but it does help with the being able to work through things that you may not even realize were an issue. And that's exactly what happened with me.
Yeah, I am. I'm in the process of trying to get a ketamine advocate on the podcast and talk about it.
Yeah.
But we were trying to figure it out so that I could go and try to do it before he came on, so we could talk about it. But
Yeah.
because it's been talked about in some of my sessions as it could be a potential benefit.
Sure.
But so we've got you to this point, right? You figured it out. Finally,
Hmm.
the unlock with the ADHD medication. What's the future look like then?
Man, so I'm learning to appreciate the day to day. For as long as I can remember, I'm always wanting to do something and have something to look forward to, and chasing adrenaline and all those things. But I'm trying to appreciate the day to day and just enjoy a mundane, regular Wednesday.
Yeah.
So trying to do that. Career wise, man, like I said, even while this kind of all was starting, I took our battalion chiefs process and made the list. And five guys have been promoted off that list. There's a few of us left. I'm one of the youngest on there, and so I'm going to retake that process. But yeah, I'm just trying to enjoy where I'm at, get my head back in the game. I really did my folks on my truck a disservice when I was going through all this because I was there, but I wasn't developing guys. I wasn't really committed to them, and so kind of getting that ball rolling again, and then yeah, taking opportunities to talk to people, man. That's I talked to a guy last week, and this kind of came up, and he's like, "Dude, I'm going through that right now," and it's somebody I would have never thought, and so I think it's more common than we think. I think if we're being honest, most guys it's crossed their mind to check out at
Hmm.
some point or another, and like we talked about off air, man, I'm not an expert in any of this. Like, I'm just a hazmat dude who, you know, rides a fire truck and that's it. I
Hmm.
don't have a lot to offer beyond that, but I think it is important to talk to people and that kind of leads me into I wanted to talk a little bit about how like our department and our union have worked together to really make mental health resources available and kind of remove the stigma on it. And if that's something you want to dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, that's a big thing for me, removing the stigma, allowing guys to sit around and say, I'm not doing good, and that's okay, and we can have this conversation. But yeah, absolutely. What I know you mentioned at some point about some of the resources they were connecting. What was their role in all this?
Yeah, so our local 947, and we just got like we've got some superstars on the on our principal officers for the union, uh, and then they we've got a few guys that are traveling around actually teaching the peer support program. Uh, Somebody has an incident, we just had unfortunately that paramedic in Kansas City that was stabbed. Stuff like that. These guys will go out there and sit around firehouses and talk to guys. So kind of spearheading that, and then we were a pilot program. We were a pilot site for the peer support program, and uh, our fire admin. And I know it's not popular, but I'm generally very happy with our admin. They're a really solid group of leaders, and they said, "Yeah, what do we need to do?" So we've got, I think, close to 40 peer support members now. They're listed in our staffing. I've had them for calls I've been on. You get back to the station, one of them's there waiting on you.
Mhm.
And it's all well respected guys and girls in our fire department. It's all people that uh, a kind of above reproach. Like they're all really solid employees and solid people. So, and our admin is said, yes, what do we need to do? Oh, you need time off for mental health. Like, yeah, that's a thing. Let's do it. Whatever you need. We've sent people at 3 in the morning to the Center of Excellence, and no one bats an eye. Like,
Mhm.
go. Don't worry about taking your time off. Like, your job will be here when you get back. It's take care of yourself. And so I got to give props to our admin and the union. Like I said, we just got some superstars that are really leading the charge. And my buddy Benny, who was the one that kind of walked through all this with me, is our secretary treasurer and um, just a rock star when it comes to everything fire service, but really leading the charge and getting people resources and stuff. Because we have unfortunately had, I think since I've been there, 5 suicides since 2009. Uh, and so, like, we saw the need for it,
Mhm.
or those guys did, and we're really proponents of it. And so, my hope is that if, I imagine your show attracts some leaders in the fire service that,
Mhm.
kind of, I think the least you could do is not put up any roadblocks if your union or whatever is trying to implement these resources. Like, let it happen and support them how you can, um, because there is a need for it. And some of it's not job related. Like I said, like mine was just. I mean, I've been on all those terrible calls, and they suck, but mine was not related to that,
Mhm.
as far as I know and can tell. Um, I was just a dude with a jacked up brain. So
Yeah.
that found his way in the fire service. Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of us that have the jacked up brain that find their way to the fire service. Something about it. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, as we kind of wrap up here, man, I just want to say thank you for your willingness to tell a hard story. I know it's
For
probably
sure.
not like the most comfortable thing to talk
No.
about, but I think it's super important that we have people that have been through it that say that there's a path through it, and a better life on the other side of it. So I just want to thank you for that, and just like really let you know how appreciative I am for it.
Man, yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, I hope, somebody, one person out there finds benefit from it. Awesome. It was worth it. But yeah, there's no shame in my game. I'm not, it is what it is. So
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
absolutely. Thank you.